Hi everyone, so slightly different video today because I had a question in one of the comments on one of my previous videos, and somebody who has the YouTube handle CBR1000RR, I think it is, if I remember rightly, and I will drop you a message to let you know that this video has been made. So this guy messaged me and asked for some advice. So he's recently bought a 2008 Fireblade, and it's his first Fireblade, and he just wanted a little bit of guidance, a little bit of thoughts on things like maintenance, some tips on maintenance, maintenance intervals, and things like that. So I thought I would just share maybe what I do in terms of looking after my Fireblade, which is a 2009, so basically the same bike. And what I will say before I start, however, is this is just what I do. Now, everybody is slightly different. So some people might have slightly different preferences when it comes to looking after their bikes. And some of what I'm going to say is specific just to the Fireblade of that age. And some of what I say might be quite generic to other bikes as well. But I'll talk you through it, and hopefully this might be useful for yourself. CBR1000RR, again, I think is the name, and some other people might find this useful as well. So let's talk about, first and foremost, some of the known issues of the Fireblade from that age. The first thing that springs to mind is they are known for burning through quite a bit of oil. Now, this is normal for that age of Fireblade, and I tend to check my oil every few hundred miles, every 300 miles or so, and if need be, top it up with just a little bit. Now, what I find is I tend to get through about somewhere between half a litre and a litre of oil every 1,000 miles. Again, it's pretty normal for that age. It is what it is. Some people complain about that as being high oil consumption, and I guess it is in the bigger scheme of things. Like some bikes use or burn hardly any oil compared to that, but it is what it is. So yeah, the first thing I would recommend is every few hundred miles, just double check your oil level and top up when necessary. In terms of other issues, so things like cam chain tensioner, which is not exclusive just to the Fireblade. There are quite a few bikes that, after X amount of miles that you need to replace the cam chain tensioner. My bike at the moment has done 31,000 miles, and the cam chain tensioner is okay. I actually had it checked by my mechanic about a week ago, and I got him to listen to the engine, and he said there was a tiny rattle, but not enough to for it to need to be done just yet. But I would keep an eye on the sound of your engine, especially if your bike has done maybe 25,000 miles and upwards. Just keep an eye on the sound of the engine. If you do hear, when the engine's ticking over, a slight knocking noise, normally from the right hand side of the engine, then that might indicate that you need the cam chain tensioner changed. And what many people do, because the Fireblade has got an automatically adjusting cam chain tensioner, many people will replace it with a manual adjusting cam chain tensioner. What are the known faults? I think, to be honest, that's about it. I have heard some people in the past talk about the reg rectifier overheating. I've never had that problem. I'm on my second Fireblade, so I've had a Fireblade now for about 4 years, and I've never had a problem with the reg rectifier. But if you find that you start having battery problems or starting issues, maybe check or get the reg rectifier checked. So that's probably it really with known faults. I mean, the Honda engines are fantastic, and if you look after them, they will go for miles. So in terms of regular maintenance now, oil changes, Honda recommend that You change the oil every 7,500 miles according to the user manual. I do it more often though, so I'll change my oil every 3 to 5,000 miles, depending on how much riding I've been doing and sort of what kind of riding I've been doing. If I've been riding hard, or I've got a big journey coming up, like this year for example, I did that 1,500 mile trip around Europe. So I changed the oil a few weeks before that trip, and I'd done about 3,000 miles since the last oil change, but I wanted fresh oil in there before the big trip. There's some banging for some reason. I don't know if one of the neighbours is hammering the walls. I hope they can't hear that on camera. And so I change the oil every 3 to 5,000 miles. I always did use sort of semi-synthetic oil because the engine's a bit older now. I don't think you're going to get the full benefit of fully synthetic. But having said that, prior to the Germany trip, I did put fully synthetic oil in there. Okay, so I just had to take a little bit of break while I waited for the neighbour to finish hammering the walls. So apologies about the banging sound if you could hear that. Where was I? So yeah, fully synthetic oil. I put fully synthetic oil in just before the Germany trip because it's better in the hotter temperatures, and I knew that we were going to be doing a lot of riding and a lot of hard riding as well on the famous B500 in Germany. I'm probably due to change the oil in about 1,000 miles time, and I might stick with fully synthetic. I'll see. I'll make a decision nearer the time, but fully synthetic's okay, semi-synthetic's fine as well. In terms of things like spark plugs and valve clearances, it's probably good to do those things together, because whilst you put the bike into the mechanic to get the valve clearances done, obviously the mechanic has got to get underneath the tank, underneath the airbox, into the top of the engine to do the valve clearances. It makes sense to do the spark plugs at the same time. And if you've recently bought the bike, if you're not sure when the spark plugs were done or if they've been done, then it's probably a good idea just to spend that little bit of extra money and get new spark plugs when you get the valve clearances done. Valve clearances need to be done at 16,000 miles, and then I think again at 32. That's just a guess, but double check your user manual. It'll save a bit of money as well. If you get the plugs done at the same time the valve clearances, it's just saving a little bit of labour time. The brake fluid, I normally work off a rule of about once every 2 years, or if needed. I mean, if you come to get your brake calipers rebuilt with new pistons, new seals, it makes sense. Obviously you'll have the brake fluid done at the same time, but if you don't need to do that, I'd probably say 2 years for your brake fluid. And the same for the coolant as well, the engine coolant, every 2 years. The mileage for your coolant will be in your user manual. I don't think most people will do the mileage, so it's best to work off the time. And I'd say, yeah, every 2 years, brake fluid and coolant. In terms of brake pads, obviously they're one of your main consumables, so it's just a question of changing your brake pads whenever they need done. Keep an eye on your pads. I'd recommend that when they get down to about 3 mil, 2 mil, then it's probably time to get them changed, or at least get them changed very soon after that. The pads that I normally use are EBC H sintered pads. Pretty good pads, and if you're just road riding, if you're not doing any track time, then those are fine. If you're doing quite a few track days, you might want to buy pads specific for the track, or you might want to buy some slightly higher performing pads that are good for both road and track. But generally speaking, H sintered pads is what you want, especially on a litre sports bike. Chain and sprockets. I estimate that I get probably somewhere between 10 to 15,000 miles out of a chain and sprockets. but you will see that when your chain is due to be replaced because of the markers on the swing arm, as you would continue to adjust your chain and your the markers on the blocks move backwards along the swing arm, you'll see when it needs adjusted. When it needs changed. I'd recommend using a good quality heavy duty chain like DID, for example, is what I use. There are obviously other makes of chains out there. I use a Renthal rear sprocket and a JT silent front sprocket. And yeah, they tend to work quite well together. I've been doing that now for at least a couple of years. Another thing that I would recommend, because the bike is new to you, and this goes for anybody getting any bike, is get the suspension set up for your weight. Some reputable mechanics will do this for you. They'll charge you a little bit, between maybe 50 and 80 quid. You ride along and they will measure the amount of sag on both the front and rear. They will maybe ask a few questions about how you ride. They will adjust the suspension. You'll go for a little ride, come back, give them a little bit of feedback on how the bike feels, make some more adjustments if needed, and then you're good to go. Like genuinely, a well set up suspension, front and rear, will transform the bike and give you loads and loads of confidence in the amount of grip that you have. And of course, then the way the bike behaves under braking, in the corners, under acceleration. So I would definitely recommend getting the suspension checked as well and adjusted for your weight. And other than that, I would always recommend to anybody to clean your bike regularly, because whilst you're cleaning your bike, you're paying attention to it. And when you're in there cleaning and wiping everything down, you can spot any little niggly problems that might otherwise become bigger problems. So you're spotting these things early and you're able to deal with them before they become much bigger issues or much more expensive problems. But other than that, I would say just go by the user manual, except, like I say, oil changes, I do them more often than 7,500 miles, depending on how you ride. And just enjoy the bike. You know, the 2008 Fireblade, that age of Fireblade, 08 to 16, is a fantastic bike. I absolutely love those bikes. It is a very confidence inspiring bike. The front end feels very planted, providing your suspension is good. And I would always recommend to someone that if you're going to get a litre bike for the very first time, you can't go wrong with a Fireblade. So yeah, hopefully that covers quite a few things. I don't think there's anything else that comes to mind to look out for. And like I say, everything else, you know, servicing is just as per the user manual. But yeah, check your chain regularly, make sure they're in good condition, your chain and sprockets, top up your oil regularly, or check and top up your oil regularly, and make sure those valve clearances have been done. Either you have proof that they've been done, seeing as you've just bought the bike. If you're not sure whether they've been done or not, then it's probably best to get them checked and get your spark plugs done while you're there as well. So hopefully that has given you a little bit of information to go by. Other than that, yeah, enjoy the bike. And if there's any more questions that you, CToy13, or anyone else has, then please don't hesitate to get in touch, and I will always try my best to help you out. I'm not an expert, but I will share everything that I know. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in, folks, and stay safe and have fun.